So you made step 5 on the push stick booklet, and this one is using the drilling your holes using the drill press. So this is the drill press. I will say at this point though, you can do steps, go on to step 6 or 7 using you don't have to do this one next. We're going to do this in this order. You can follow through. But if there was people, these are in use, feel free to jump ahead and use the scroll saw. Okay, because they're not, you can do that as well. But how do you use the drill press? So this is the drill press right here. This is one of the few machines in here that you will not need hearing protection to use. It's not that loud, but normally when we're using it, we still need it on because the extraction's running, other machines are running and stuff like that. So you will have your hearing protection on. That's why I don't have mine on right now, is because it's not a loud machine. Okay, so with this, you're going to bring your push stick, and we're going to be drilling a hole. So the first thing is you've got your drawing on here as to where you want your push stick to be, and you're going to pick your hole spot to put the hole in the back end of it here. Okay, so we put a plus sign wherever that's supposed to be. That's going to be the middle of your hole. Okay, so I've got my hole on here. There's my plus sign, and that's where I'm going to be drilling the hole. Now, it says on here, if you look at this, you've already done your D2L test, you've watched the video, you got 100% on the drill press, and then you're going to be getting your drill bit. Okay, so it says 3/16 or bigger. Drill bits are over here, right next to it, sitting here. So 3/16 or bigger, and here's my 3/16. So you can pick whatever you want from here up. And you don't want to go huge, but you don't want to be too small. So I'm going to pick about, I'll do a 1/4 inch. So I'm grabbing this. Something that you like. The idea with this is, well, one, you're learning how to use the tool, but the idea by putting a hole in this is you could then put a nail in the wall or a hook and hang it up. Okay? So I'm going to put this in. So to put this in, this is what's called a twist drill bit or a combination drill bit or a normal drill bit. If somebody says a drill bit, they're talking about this. And you can see on it that it's got a round shaft here, and then it's got fluting or little grooves that spiral around the outside. They are sharp on the front here. It comes to a point. There's sharp edges here that do the cutting, and it kind of will cut down the side. So you don't want to be, rubbing your fingers along the edges. You can get cut. But basically but you can touch it, and it won't hurt you. Just don't be rubbing them around. What you would normally do for a drill, sometimes you might put it up, set the drill at certain depths. In this case, though, the rule of thumb when you're putting it in here is grab it where the fluting ends, okay, with my fingers, and then I want to stick this, so I'm going to put it up in the chuck. So I'm going to pull this out of the way. My chuck is right here, and I'm going to stick this up inside there, hold it there, and then I'll spin this. And as you spin this around, the teeth will either come down and clamp together. There's 3 of them. They either come down and clamp together, or they'll go up inside and open up. So I turn this, it's coming down to clamp it, and I want that to be in the middle, okay? And I kind of tighten that. Don't want to drop this, so I'm holding this, turn this until it tightens, then I can grab my 2 hands and twist this. So this part here spins, I'm holding this part. Now it's holding it good. It's always a good idea when you're putting that in to have your wood underneath there, so if it does happen to fall down, it hits the wood and doesn't go all the way down through there and hit the floor, which is not good. And when we're taking the drill bit out, you always want to be aware of that. Okay, and so there we go. I've got it in. Now I need to tighten it. To tighten it, I come up here, and always you want the drill unplugged when you're doing this. Never be holding onto this. Have your hands in around this if that's plugged in, because then it could accidentally start. It's unplugged, there's no way it's going to start. I need to tighten this up. The key is up here, so I'm going to grab this key, and I just grab this side, pop it out, and it'll come out for me. Okay. And I take this and I plug it into the little hole. So this goes like this. I plug it into the hole. I can turn it around, but I push that in here, okay. And then I'm going to tighten. It's righty-tighty, so I've got my right hand. Get this so it's kind of straight up and down if you can. My thumb goes on here, hand goes on the bottom, and I'm going to pry that way. And basically you can pry as hard as you can to tighten that up. We want that good and snug and in the middle there. Okay, that's tightened up. Then I'm going to take that out, snap it back in here, and then I'm going to swing my guard around to cover that off. Okay, so now I am basically ready to drill. Okay, it's in there safely. I can plug this in now. Boom, plug in. So that's now live. Okay. Now there's quite a gap here. I could go ahead and get ready to drill. The next step I'm going to do is clamp this down. But before I do that, there's a lot of space here. If I was to have this clamped and pull this out, start it up, and be ready to go, I need to bring this all the way down and more to here before it's ready to start cutting. Okay. Now sometimes you might need to want to go deep into something, but to get that far down just to drill doesn't make much sense. I want to bring this up. Okay, so there's too much space here. We want to bring the tip of the drill bit to be closer to this. If I had a longer drill bit, so if I was using one like this, then I wouldn't need to, it's going to stick down a lot further, and that might work for me. Okay, but this one's shorter because of the size that I picked, and I want to adjust this. Okay, now, very important on this, do not touch the hand crank to adjust this if this is tight. So before you touch the hand crank on this side here, and there's a nice little yellow marker on here saying, warning, loosen the table lock lever. Okay, so we don't want to touch this if this is tight. So I can't move that, don't touch that. What I need to do is come around to the other side over here and loosen this collar lock right here. Okay, so to do that, I want to go counterclockwise to loosen. So I come around like that and crank that around. Now that's loose. Okay, and boom, this moves. Okay, so now it's easy for me because this moves. Now, yes, I can crank this. If I try to turn this and that collar lock is tight here and this doesn't move, when I crank this, I'll break the teeth here or break inside here. It's not going to be good. Now, because it's loose, I can crank it and I will turn this around and it comes up. Okay, so want to have that piece of wood there. I don't want to get I don't want to come right up really, really tight, so that's getting too close. Back it down. Okay, and I always want to finish on loosening, lowering it down, then I'm going to crank it up a little bit. You kind of want to finish off on the up crank so then it's tight, because otherwise it can be loose here and it can slip a little bit on me. Okay, so there we go. Now, I'm going to be drilling all the way through this piece of wood, which means my drill bit is going to go through this piece of wood and into whatever is underneath it. I want to make sure, because that's loose and I moved it, I don't want to be drilling into this piece of metal. That's very bad. And you'll see on this one, there's a couple of little spots here where people have hit it in the past. Don't be like them. So we do want to set that up so the drill bit is in the center of that hole, which is perfect. It can go down through and it's not going to hit anything. And if you have a bigger drill bit, you may not be able to drill down and through something. In that case, you would use a spoil board. So you see some pieces of wood here. You might put a piece underneath there, so when you go through your piece of wood, you go down and into this, and that way you don't get into hitting the metal here. Okay. So sometimes you might have to clamp a piece of wood. It's shorter. Maybe I want to drill a hole in this, and it's shorter. In order to clamp, I have to move over like that, and definitely put another piece of wood underneath it, so that I can go through the first piece of wood and get into the second one without touching the table here. Okay. So here we go in the middle. Okay, and then I want to lock that down. Okay, so it's in the right spot. Come around to the side again here. Now this time I'm going clockwise. Okay, and tighten it up nice. There we go. Make sure I'm still in the middle where I want it to be. Yes, I am. Good. Okay. Now the next step is clamping my piece of wood down. Okay, so your clamp's back here in the wall. Grab a clamp, and you're going to put it underneath here. Now, underneath here, there is a lip right here. I want to put my clamp underneath that lip, and there's also some pieces. There's a piece that goes straight up here, one that goes out to the side here. So I wouldn't want to be on top of that. I want to be inside here, and then clamp it down here. Okay, so there we go. Screw this up. And boom. So you're going to go like this. I'm going to get it close to where it's tight, and then I'm going to get my spotter. Okay, so my spotter's over here. I've got this partially clamped, and I'm going to set this up. So I want my point of my drill bit to be in the middle of that plus sign that I did. Okay, so I line that up. There we go. And I'm going to pull that down and kind of hold it tight right there. So I've got a little bit of tension on the arm here, pulling this down, holding it in place. Okay, and then so I'm going to let my spotter hold that, and then I will come over here. So my spot, we'll pretend that's my elbow is my spotter. Okay, and then or my armpit is, so a spotter would hold this down. I would come around to this side, and then I would be able to clamp and tighten this up. And that allows you to get it in the right spot, tighten down in the right spot without this moving around on me. Okay, once that's clamped, I can let this up. Now I'm ready to drill. Okay, so a couple things. One, when I clamp this down, that little circle part of the clamp is going to actually put a little circle onto my piece of wood. If for the push stick it doesn't matter. If this is a good piece of wood, then I may want to grab something like this and put it underneath there in between, so that when I clamp down, it leaves the mark on this piece of wood and not on mine. Okay, and then I'm ready to drill right now. So I'm plugged in. Next step is I've got my safety gear on, so I come over to here, I pull out on the emergency stop button, okay, boom. Oh, and before I start this up, you'll notice this one has the emergency stop button like the bandsaw had. It's got a green button to start it, but also has a red button here. The red button, ignore it. Okay, We don't use that red button. I want you in the habit of shutting it down always with that emergency stop. So if anything does happen, something goes wrong, you're ready to hit the e-stop. You're used to doing that instead of being like, trying to get that, because this one you have to hit the red button inside here. It's kind of weird. Not a fan of this style, but just ignore the red button. We don't use it. Hit that off, okay? So emergency stop, I'm gonna pop that out. Boom, there we go, it's out. And then green to start. And on this one, even though it is plugged in, it doesn't light up with the power until I hit the start button. Okay, hit the start button, there we go, I'm running. Okay, now, one thing I want to watch here before I start is to make sure that my drill bit still looks like a drill bit. It's still spiraling around and not wobbling back and forth. Okay, because you can have problems, and sometimes if you put your drill bit in incorrectly, you might not get in the middle, in which case you'll see it either spinning around weird, and instead of just spiraling, looking like still a drill bit, it'll actually be wobbling around, and that's bad. You'll break the drill bit and damage your wood. So I'm ready to drill. I'm standing in front of it, looking straight at it. One hand's up here, I grab this and I pull down, and I come into it. Okay, I'm touching. Don't want to go super fast. This is a thin piece of wood. If I had a thick piece of wood, I would go into it a bit, then I come back up, and then back down again. This is pretty thin, so I can go slowly through it. And what I would do, the reason I say that is that as I'm drilling, it's pulling up sawdust. You can see it there. If that gets to be a deep hole, then it might not be able to clear all the sawdust out, and I want to come up like that. And then as you're doing a deep hole and a thicker piece of wood, you will actually notice that as you pull it up, it will throw sawdust out, and you might even see some sawdust in the fluting, in those grooves up the side, kind of starting to fill it in. And I go down through it here, and there, I can tell I'm all the way through it, okay? But I come up, take a peek down. Yep, I can see that I am through it. I like to go one more time just to make sure everything's nice and clear. Okay, and so I'm down, not too fast, and back up under control. I don't just let go of this and let it fly up. That's really hard on it. I'm coming up under control. I'm done. I punch that off. Don't touch anything. Don't touch the guard. The hand should never be around there until it stops turning. Boom, now I'm ready to loosen that off. Okay, unplug the machine. Okay, just hook it up on top of here, and I pop this open. So now I have access to it, and you're gonna loosen it off. So grab my key again. Okay. It was righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, so I grab it in my left hand. I pop it in here. Again, trying to stand it up and down is gonna be good. Grab this, and then I'm going to loosen it off like this. Now, sorry, before I do that, I've drilled my hole. I want to loosen off this. And bring this over. Got some dirt on that. Let's take it to the garbage can. Tap off that sawdust. Then I bring it back here. Before I loosen this, I want to make sure that my piece of wood is underneath that. So when I loosen this, I loosen it. I don't want that to fall. It just fell down. So I don't want it to fall all the way down and ding off the metal down here. It's hard on the drill bit, and it will dull it. So if I have that there, I can drop it down here. You could maybe put your hand underneath there, but sometimes drilling, especially if you're drilling a deeper hole, this will get hot, so you wouldn't want to do that. Plus it is sharp, and if it did hit and it was hot, you try to pull back, you can cut yourself. So putting a piece of wood underneath there is way better. Loosen this off, and then slide that out, and then this stands back up on here. My drill bit is here. Now that it's loose, take this guy out, put him back in here, and then I can take, now right now I can't get that out very easy. I could grab this, slide those up, and sometimes if it's just moving my piece of wood, now that I'm holding it, it can't fall, drop it down and pull it out. And then my drill bit goes back in here. And my piece of wood, if there was some dirt dust on here, I could clean that off. Usually it doesn't get too bad. Okay, and I've just drilled my hole. When you're finished, you can stick that back in, the next person's ready to go on. Okay. I'll show you what it looks like if you do the drill bit in incorrectly. Typically happens with smaller drill bits, so I'll go a little smaller and put this in. If I've had a big drill bit in here, so maybe I had these open way up, and then I go to put this guy in, so again I grab it where the flutes are, I put it up in here, and then I start to tighten this down. It comes down, and it starts to tighten up. There we go. I kind of snug it like that. I grab this, tighten that on there. Okay, looks good. Let's say I've adjusted, I've clamped everything down, I'm ready to go. Okay, plug it in. And now when I start it, okay, you can see that is wobbling around. It's really bad. It's a really, really extreme example, okay, but it's wobbling around. If I try to drill into my piece of wood, because what happened is that it is not in the center, okay, you can see here, it's sticking out. It got caught in between two of the teeth here. Didn't get in the center, so all three teeth aren't grabbing it, only two are. And as it spins around, it's really wobbling around. If I try to drill into my wood with that, it's going to hit that. It's going to snap the drill bit and tear a big hole in my piece of wood. We don't want that. Okay? So be careful of that. Make sure it's in the middle. Again, you want to be careful of that. Making sure you keep it up in the middle. Often good to bring this down, get it close to the right size, okay, and make sure that you are in the middle. Okay, but before you drill, make sure that it looks like it's spinning, not orbiting around. Okay. And now one more thing on the drill press. So always put your key back in here. But there's this guy right here on the side. This is a depth stop. Okay, depth stop can be a big help to you. If I have a drill bit that I'm putting in here, so how we would work this is put my drill bit in, tighten it up. I'm not actually going to drill, so I won't tighten it up, but you would tighten it up here. And then I would have a piece of wood, and if I had a piece of wood that was thicker, like this, and I want to go a certain depth into it, what I do is I bring this down, touch it to there, and now that is going to be the top of, so my drill bit's touching the top of the wood. Okay? So as I pull this down, if you can come around here and have a look here, as the drill bit goes down, this piece goes with it, and so does this the stem up here, okay? But this piece stays still. So what happens is, as we bring that down and touch the top of the wood here, this level right here is the top of the wood. So if I want to drill into the wood, let's say I want to drill, a centimeter in, I would just drop, usually bring the two of them together. Okay? I'm just going to bring one for now because it's faster. But I would bring that down, and that's about the thickness of the wood right there. Okay? So if I only wanted to go into it like a centimeter in, I would set it right there. And then as I start to drill, then I would come up, I would turn on the drill, and as I come down, there's the top of the wood right there, and I'd be able to drill, drill, drill until that hits there, and that will stop it from going any further. So I'm going that depth into the wood, and it will automatically stop it for me. So I don't have to, I can set it up, I can drill a bunch of holes the same depth into a piece of wood using this. And we would spring this one down and touch it to it, and the two of them tighten against each other, and they lock it up so then they don't vibrate, you don't vibrate around, and the depth I'm going in change as I'm drilling. Okay. If you are drilling, because sometimes somebody may have set this up ahead of you and forgotten it. If you are drilling and you come down, it won't go any further. It's probably because it hit here. If the person that was ahead of you had wanted it to stop at that height. Maybe I'm drilling something like this, and it won't go into it now. Okay, that's just because of this. So shut it off, and then move this up. You can actually move this without it turned on, but it's better to have it off when you're moving this stuff and get it up. Usually, do the next person a favor if you do happen to use this. Move it up out of the way so it's not going to affect them. And there you go. Now I'll be able to drill no problem. Okay, so that's called the depth stop. Okay, you use that. Well, if you want to drill only partially with the way through something, or if you want a bunch of consistent depth holes into something, you would use that. Okay? For your toolbox, you don't need that. You just go all the way through. One final thing, if on this, now I did a pretty good job with this. When I drilled through, here's the top of my hole, here's the bottom of my hole, but sometimes you get what's called blowout. So if the drill bit was a little bit dull, if my wood was a bit soft, or if I tried to go too fast, I can get blowout here, and which would splinter off. So you can see there's a little bit of feathers here, not bad at all, but sometimes that'll splinter off. For the push stick, it doesn't matter. Sometimes you might have something that you want to, it's nice, you're going to notice this, and you don't want any splintering to happen. Then what you can do is use a spoil board. So that's a piece of wood I put underneath this, and so with this now I'm drilling through this piece of wood. Even though maybe I'm not going to hit the table, we talked about putting a piece under so you don't hit the table. Even if I was drilling in the middle and I'm not going to hit the table, clamping down another piece underneath there can be. Now when my drill bit comes through this piece, there's another piece of wood holding it in so I don't get that blowout, and it'll give me a nicer cut. Okay. Again, if you take your time, it usually isn't bad, but if it's something that you care about and people are going to see both sides, you want to make sure you do a good job, not a bad idea to put a spoil board underneath there, or sacrificial board underneath there, so when you drill through, it doesn't splinter on the back side. Okay, and that is the bandsaw. So you've now completed step 5 on the on the push stick booklet. I'm ready to move on to step 6.